All right. To take us into the lunch hour, it's going to be Dewey Cashwell or Cashell. Let me see. Cashwell. He's the city manager of South Padre Island, the town of South Padre Island. It's not the city of, for 6 years. 30 years as local government manager, and a prior life was an education specialist for the Texas, or the Sea Grant, I don't know if it's Texas, in Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana. Dewey. And Dewey's going to introduce his players.
Thank you, John. We didn't come with a formal presentation. And I think, quite frankly, that had we done so, it would probably be redundant based on the other one here, all right? It would have been redundant based on everything that we've seen here. As I mentioned to John, I had a couple of years working with the Sea Grant Advisory in Gulfport, Mississippi, and we covered a lot of territory down there. And anyone who knows anything about the Sea Grant Advisory, or the ocean for that matter, knows there's always a controversy arising somewhere. I can remember the controversy when we went from single trawl shrimpers to twin trawl shrimpers. How many have been around long enough to know anything about that, right? Made a big difference in the ocean floor and the damage that was going on. But let me tell you, it was a fight. Folks didn't want to change. It took a lot of convincing and hard science to do it. The same thing is true about so many other things, mariculture, aquaculture. And as an education specialist, it was my job to help explain these things to people, laypersons as well as folks who had stakes and interest in these various issues. Today, we have stakeholders in this business as well. South Padre Island is about 3.5 to 4 miles long as a town proper. That's all the beach there is. We are 100% tourism economy. There's nothing else that supports it. A number of the issues that are being discussed have a direct impact on the stakeholders that pay for the beach maintenance. This is no new story. I know many of you have the same situation. But, for example, in South Padre Island, we have an issue called view shed. Stacking is a wonderful idea, and I have no doubt that we're going to begin doing mid and rear stacking. I've already talked to Ray Moya and my Public Works Director, Scott Fry, back here, who I'll introduce in a minute. So there's no doubt that we've learned something here, and we're going to be applying that in our locality. However, even that has limits for us, because the first floor of the condominiums and the hotels is at such a level, in most cases, that if you stack much above about 10 or 12 feet, then you're obscuring that view shed. Is that important? Well, to some folks, no. To some folks, the environmental issues that they perceive are much more important than any consideration for whether or not folks in the first floor can see the water. But those folks have a different perspective. And when you spend that much money for a piece of property, or your life and your income depends on it, you make noise about it. Now, one of the things over the many, many years as a city manager that I have learned is that local governments are, to a great degree, responsible for helping to nurture the environment so that the economy in their jurisdictions can be strong. And anything we do to the contrary represents great peril, not only to ourselves as managers, but the folks we work for. And so there has to be a balance. What I hope is that, as I said earlier, we can achieve good science that indicates where that balance lies. We've only got 3 or 4 miles of beach, as I said, in the town of South Padre Island. I don't know who can give me the most accurate number, maybe Dave over here can, as to how many miles of beach actually exist in Texas and what percentage of those miles of beach are protected from development and have no development whatsoever. But Dave, I think you would agree that the vast majority of beach line in Texas is indeed protected and is natural environment. Is that correct? Only a small fraction is devoted to what I like to refer to as people. All right, and that's why I'm suggesting this balance has to be struck very carefully, because although it's a small percentage, there's a huge amount of revenue that's generated, and that revenue filters all the way up to the state as well. And Jerry Patterson will tell you that too. The narrowing and the combination of the narrowing of the beach and beach erosion is of great concern to us, because back in 2005, we won an award with the American Shore and Beach Preservation Association for the best renourished beach in America. And then in 2005, Katrina and Rita hit. Certainly didn't hit us, but the high surf chewed our beaches up very, very, very badly. And so we certainly have a concern about extending that beach. It's my belief that it's going to require a huge renourishment effort, and we're in the process of working with the GLO and the Corps and some private interests to do what we anticipate is going to be the largest beach renourishment in the history of the state of Texas. And the study is ongoing right now to determine a sand source to achieve that. So we certainly have a concern about not removing from the beach that which encourages the beach's protection, preservation, growth, and development. We, too, are looking for that within the context of this overall balance. But we have those who challenge us each and every day. As our folks on the beach receive it, the guys out there working the front loaders and the rakes have on many occasions been accosted by folks running out of their condo and saying, hurry up and clean up that beach. Well, we've changed our policy on that. Well, I don't care, we want a nice clean beach. And they all but grab the people by the front of their shirts and shake them. This business of conflict out there on the beach has resulted in one case of a condo actually successfully achieving an injunction against us to prevent us from placing anything on their beach in front of their condo that doesn't wash up there. If it comes from anywhere else, if it's sargassum from north or south of where they are, we are not allowed to place it there. And they watch it like a hawk. And they certainly would not be the last one to do it if we began to accelerate that process. In addition, our other challenges involve narrow renourishment window. We only have about 6 months out of the year, perhaps less, where we can actually achieve any renourishment because of issues related to sea turtle nesting. And I'm pleased to say that we have had a record number of nests that have been discovered this year on the island, and our success rate in releasing these turtles out back to the ocean after hatching is nothing short of incredible. We are seeing nests of upwards of 80 to 100 turtles and releasing them almost on a weekly basis. Let me go to the issue of hand picking. We are doing hand picking now, but from a practical side, the city manager has to consider where does the money come from. Every resource is finite, even the beach maintenance funds, hotel, motel funds. When you start getting more people for more hand picking, there's a labor cost. And somewhere along the way, that's going to compromise something else that needs to be done with those funds as well. So once again, there's a budget balance there. Hand picking is commendable and definitely something we are doing more of, and I suspect we'll do a great deal more of, because our folks at the beaches on South Padre Island have a very high expectation for what's to be done. How many of you have been to South Padre Island? Okay, so I don't have to explain how intense the development is along the shoreline in South Padre. Within the town proper, there's almost I'd say there might be 3 or 4 lots left available for beachfront development. We have beach accesses, thank goodness, someone preserved those many years ago, but we have these beach accesses, but other than that, you can't see the beach as you're driving down Gulf Boulevard. You have to get out, park, and go through one of those to be able to see it. That whole issue of how much there is left out there in order to be able to provide public access is quite a challenge for us. Certainly, one of the things that we want to do is preserve those properties because they're very, very valuable, and that revenue is important to the town to sustain all of the other things we do. But we also have to provide for those folks who are allowed to visit the beaches through there as well. And that's a balance that we have to strike, and we've had some challenges with that. Overall, I want to say, John, that this is a terrific program. It's a great start towards actually moving to some good science as well as common sense, and hopefully get away from some of the hyperbola and some of the other more dramatic statements that are not necessarily supported by fact. One of the earlier presentations about the difference between a raked beach versus an unraked beach, may not be the definitive statement, and certainly is not the definitive statement, but it's a start towards helping to understand that what we don't know is what we don't know. And we need to continue working towards finding out these real facts. The folks that really get out there and do it where the rubber meets the road are with me today. And Scott Fry, my Public Works Director, is here. And Scott, if you'd come up, you can explain to the folks what it is that we're actually involved with and how we approach it.
Good morning. My name is Scott Fry. I'm the Public Works Director. I've been in that capacity for about since January. Although I've only been there for a few months, I have spent most of my life on the beach, however. I'll try to supplement what Mr. Cashwell has been saying by explaining a little bit about our beach maintenance efforts. As he said, we are a 3 to 4 mile long incorporated city. We do not allow vehicles outside of our maintenance and code enforcement vehicles on the beach. There's no other vehicles allowed, no ATVs or anything of the sort. We do have a permanent population of about 4,000 residents, but our day population based on our hotels and condominiums is 20 to 30,000. And during peaks such as 4th of July, spring break, Easter, we are in the hovering around the 100,000 mark as far as population goes. We do have 3 tractors that are equipped with 15-foot rakes. As Dewey said, we have a stake bed truck that we do the hand picking before the rake comes in the morning. We'll run through there. We'll empty our trash barrels, of which we have 150 in that 3 miles. They'll empty those barrels and they'll hand pick trash to the best of their ability. We also have an active code enforcement that's out there every day, preventing glass bottles on the beaches and other activities that could be dangerous to other people. Excuse me. We have 24 beach access points for the public. They're spaced approximately 2 to 3 blocks apart. Almost all of them are equipped with paved parking and dune walkovers, and 2 of them are equipped with public restroom facilities, and we maintain those as well. We're in the process of implementing a flag warning system. Some folks from Galveston came down a couple of months ago, and they assisted us with the design of the signs and the placement and some good advice, and so we're hoping to implement that and emulate them over there and try to help our guests out a little bit with that. We have a beach and dune committee that stands to help us, give us advice as far as our beach cleaning efforts and as far as building permits, making recommendations for building permits on the beach. As Dewey said, our island is 100% tourist-driven as far as the economy goes. We are bounded to the south by the Brownsville Ship Channel and a significant jetty system. That jetty system does prevent the natural flow of silt from south to north that would normally come out of the Rio Grande River and re-nourish our beaches. Gets trapped and stays down away from us, unfortunately. As far as beach maintenance, we utilize rakes on a regular basis. We rake to the toe of the dunes. We only use loaders when there's a super heavy event that comes in. Otherwise, it's just the rakes, and we used to rake more often than we do, but now through the Beach and Dune Committee, we are backing off on the everyday raking to trying to leave some of that sargassum on the beach as long as it's not a nuisance. Unfortunately, we don't really have any room for the rear disposal like we saw in some of the presentations yesterday. As Dewey said, we're almost completely built out. There's only about 2 or 3 vacant lots, and so we don't have that luxury. So we do go to the toe of the dunes. We do, however, have old washover locations in some areas of the beach where there's just no dunes at all in front of certain hotels and things like that. And we do make an effort to place those sargassum piles in there, and we are in a cooperative with the University of Texas at Brownsville, where they're actually going in there and assisting us, and we're assisting them with the manpower to revegetate those dunes as they creep up in those washout areas. some of our beach renourishment efforts, when we can do them in our outside of our sea turtle window, we're trying to work with the Port of Brownsville to take silt from their ship channel when they do the dredge and renourish our beach, which we've done in the past, and we're trying to currently accomplish right now. We're also doing an offshore sand source study, looking for sand that we may be able to pump back onto the beach from offshore. And this year we did also accept sand from the Texas Department of Transportation. On the highway north of the island, there's very large dunes, and they tend to drift across the pavement. And so TxDOT periodically has to go out there and remove sand from their right-of-way. And we make trucks available, and we moved 100,000 cubic yards of sand earlier this year onto our beach. And as far as the turtles go, I wasn't aware that we were having a record year, but I've only been there for 3 months or 4 months. But I do know that we had 3 turtle nests last week. So, I also wanted to introduce, before I go, Ray Moya is our public works superintendent. He's been on the island for 24 years, so he's our resident expert on beach raking and stuff like that. And 24 years of beach raking, our beach is still there, so you must be doing something right. And Kate Ball, who is our town planner, and she coordinates our beach and dune committee. So I may not be able to answer too many questions, but I think between Dewey, Ray, and Kate, y'all should be able to get vast amounts of information about what we do on the island. Thank you.
Dewey, I'll let you field the questions as you see them coming in.
Okay.
You can tell the appropriate person to answer. Questions of the South Padre Island bumpers. There's one, Tony.
Sure.
Tony.
Tony?
Yeah, I had a point about the protection of many of the beaches in the whole state of Texas. That protection is often due to inaccessibility rather than some entity saying this beach is protected. A vast amount of our Gulf Coast is just inaccessible by road. The other thing I wondered while listening to you is, I wonder if there's anybody here who had the experience of driving all the way from Port Aransas to the Mexican border before the Mexico, or rather to your Brazos-Santiago pass. Is there anybody here who drove all the way before the Mexico pass went in?
Henry Hildebrandt's the only one I remember, but he went that way.
Now we have several places where you can't get across.
Yeah.
Frankly, I'm pleased that so much of the beach is inaccessible because, what better way to do it? I know that they've had quite a little battle up in Willacy County over the last year or so, as you may have read about. And, a great amount of that beach should be relatively inaccessible as far as I'm concerned. It's very much like a national park and thus should be protected.
I was curious about that condo that says you can't bring anything in front of. Do they insist that you pick up whatever comes in from the sea?
Whatever washes up in front of their place, we are okay to push up there.
Okay.
If it washes up at the next door condo, they say we can't push it up there. But I must say, and I think our queen of the beach back here, Kate Ball, who has really done a tremendously masterful job working with a variety of agencies and helping manage that beach over the year, will tell you that feelings are changing. Feelings are changing quite dramatically, I think, on the island with regard to the private property owners and the condominiums as far as what's going on. I think even these folks will eventually come around. But I've seen some pretty hard-headed folks come to realize that without the preservation of this beach, they won't have anything, and the Sargassum does play a role in that.
It might be helpful to show them some pictures of before and after Holiday Beach, which was a place in Louisiana that got wiped out by Rita that had effectively no dune protection in front of it. You're sitting at just about, especially considering the amount of development, they're an incredibly vulnerable, narrow piece of barrier island, which sooner or later is going to get hit with a really bad hurricane. And afterwards, they're going to wish they had some dunes in front of them. I was giving a talk at one of the big condos on Mustang Island 10 years or so ago, and they were bragging about how close their big glass windows at their conference room were to the beach, and I'm looking at it, and I'm seeing it from the perspective of a coastal geologist, and thinking I sure wouldn't want to be there when a hurricane was sitting out there. So maybe that can be dealt with by education to where they actually want some dunes in front of them, even if it partially restricts the view.
Well, we've had a couple of complexes that have had that epiphany, if you will, following the last high surfs that we experienced when they found all of their beach poolside furniture in the pool stacked on top of the sand that was at the bottom. And it was quite a revelation for them, and they then began to become advocates for the dune line. But I must also say, we are a barrier island. We are not the mainland. And consequently, when that high surf comes, and we've had some virtual reality renderings of that, when the ultimate high surf does come from a big storm, in all likelihood, much of what is there, either encouraged by man or fully developed by nature, will probably be severely impacted. And I'm not sure that under that extreme scenario, that a lot of the properties that are so close to sea level as we all are on the island will be all that well protected by the dunes. Frankly, I perceive the dunes as protection against the average variances of high surf, as opposed to that extreme event. And in the case of those average variances of high surf, they do offer a substantial protection, and we're reinforcing that.
The only place on the coast where the dunes are protection against really severe storms is North Padre Island and Mustang Island.
Mm-hmm.
Practically nowhere else, just about everywhere else will get overwashed. The property down there, is that all those properties go to the Gulf of Mexico as their boundary, or are some of them surveyed boundaries on the seaside?
They go to the mean high tide line.
Okay, so they are all based on the old Padre Bailly grants?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so they probably can tell you what you can or cannot do with anything above the high tide line because it is their property.
That's correct. Although they have to provide public access, there are some things they don't have to allow for.
Right, but that doesn't mean moving stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dewey, you mentioned some of these 40 to 100,000 visitors a day, and some of them are really interested in or upset when they can't go out there and just walk that beach and beachcomb. Is that you just tell them tough, we're going to clean it regardless, or you're going to tell them, well, you're going to have to just go somewhere else if you really want to do that? So my question is, how do you balance? Obviously, there's people who want to go to stay in South Padre, which has unique beach experience, different than lots of places, and it's geared for tourism. And some of them want to see, and some of them want to see it natural. Is there maybe not like a red light zone, but hey, no, if you want to really see the beach, we're not going to clean this 1 mile stretch, and you go stay in those condos. If you want to Miami Beach, you come and stay at this end. Is that something like that in the works, or is that just a little bit too complicated to?
Well, it's no more and no less complicated than all the other things we've discussed. But the fact is that although I haven't perceived a large level of advocacy on the part of the visitors for that sort of thing, we know that we have a large percentage of folks that visit the island that do come there for the ecotourism opportunities, beginning with the sea life and the beaches, and then ranging into the birding, which is a huge business for us. So we know that there is an awareness, and I don't even think you could call it a dawning awareness. It's a well-established awareness and desire to see that. And I must say that most of our visitors have been able to come to terms with the idea of there being a certain amount of sargassum on the beach without the absolute naked raking of the beaches. But I will at the same time tell you that we have indigenous advocates for that who are much stronger. The quintessential little ladies in flip-flops are a powerful force on that island. And they will tell you in no uncertain terms exactly what they hope to see and how they hope to accomplish it. And in point of fact, for those who may be interested in an employment opportunity, in all likelihood, this fiscal year, I'm going to be employing on the island for the first time a coastal management coordinator, a single individual who has as that individual's sole responsibility the total management of the beach. Everything from the daily active management and movement of sargassum or anything else that's out there on to the full extreme of writing grants and interacting with the good folks from the GLO and other agencies. So we're taking it very, very seriously, and the local advocates that we have really been the strongest push. We have a beach and dune task force. I don't think either Scott or I mentioned that earlier. We have a beach and dune task force whose responsibility is to see to the active implementation of our policies and practices and our beach maintenance plan. And those folks are a powerful force. And a little over a year ago, they stood up and said, we do not want to be a rubber stamp organization. We're determined to take an active role in best practice on the beaches of South Padre Island, and they have done so. And so now we are working very hard to try to be able to work together with all of the stakeholders involved. And in point of fact, we just had our very first joint meeting between the Beach and Dune Task Force and the Convention and Visitors Authority, who, in fact, on their board have a number of the stakeholders, the hoteliers, and that sort of thing. So the dialogue is there, and it is growing on a daily basis. Yes, sir.
Question. You mentioned that you all have cut back on your raking schedule. What was it originally and what is it today?
Well, it was very much like Cameron County does. We raked every day. We raked it good, and it was a really pretty naked beach. And now we only rake when there's a significant amount of material out there to justify it. And Ray Moya could speak better to that. Ray, come on up. Let's talk a little bit about it real quick. I know everybody wants to go to lunch, but we'll be quick. I can't tell you what yeoman service this gentleman has done for the town of South Padre Island for these many years, but the fact that he still has a smile on his face is nothing short of a milagro.
Yeah, we take the heat out there. Right now, like Dewey says, when it's maybe, like they showed a couple pictures ago, where it's scattered in open spaces and people can walk and enjoy it. People once it gets to the foot or where it's very thick, something like that, and we start breaking. And that's what we're doing now.
And one of the other changes we've made is that we don't rake behind the dunes anymore. There were certain areas where we used to rake behind the dunes and clear those areas out because folks had, volleyball courts or little play areas and sandy areas for the kids to get out to. And now we've ceased to do that as well. And those same advocates for those areas have gone in and been advocates for creation of things at our beach accesses like butterfly gardens. And we have no less than, 3 or 4 butterfly gardens on the island, too. And if you haven't seen our butterfly collection, you have just got to see it. None of them are pinned to a wall. They're all out there fluttering.
Plus you have Sea Turtles Incorporated.
Yes, we have Sea Turtle Inc., and that is going to be an expansion issue. And we are also building a brand new, you must come to see, birding and nature center that is right adjacent to Sea Turtle Inc. It's quite a facility.
I was wondering, I realize when they're doing the beach nourishment, it's in the winter months, when it's a whole different host of tourism, we have more of our winter Texans at that time. What is the response from the public for that nourishment with dredge material?
Well, it hasn't always been pleasant, as you might imagine, when you lay a huge pipe all along the beach. And they see this stuff coming out, and it doesn't necessarily smell good. Scott made a bit of a misstatement earlier. We don't seep the silt. We actually get sand from that dredge. There's some silt in it, inevitably, but the reaction varies, as you might expect. But over the years, folks have pretty much gotten used to it. The main thing is to not impose this during the peak tourist season, as you might imagine. But even with the less intrusive sand hauling, we've had some folks who've really gotten up in arms over the idea of dump trucks going back and forth countless numbers of times to carry sand out to the beach from north on the island where we get it off the highway. And some of the winter Texans who come down there for their 5 to 7 months of enjoyment certainly haven't enjoyed smelling the diesel fumes or hearing the trucks. But over time, they get used to it. And we've had to do, even with those folks who are right on the beach that has eroded to the point where they've lost maybe a couple of 100 yards of beach, still get upset. And we have to explain that, this is your beach. If you want to continue to have a beach, we have to do this. They're not happy about the timing. Then we have to explain the timing issue. And this is not just an annual event to do these explanations, but a minute-to-minute thing. Every new face that shows up has the same questions. And so, Ray and the boys out there become PR people as well as front loader operators. Thanks for sharing, and thanks for allowing us to share.